moment I heard splashing, I knew something was wrong. It wasn't the kind of splash you hear when a kid drops a toy into the pool. This was deliberate, loud, arrogant, and unapologetically invasive. I raced toward the backyard and froze. There she was, Karen, the notorious HOA enforcer, mid-laugh, lounging in my private pool as if she owned the place. My jaw dropped. My pool is behind a locked gate, with a security camera I personally installed. Somehow she had not only climbed over the fence but had the audacity to treat my backyard like a public resort. Karen was infamous in the neighborhood. She had a flair for turning trivial rules into major dramas, and for harassing anyone who didn't conform to her self-appointed standard of perfection. She was the type who would report you for a crooked flower or a slightly uneven lawn. Yet here she was, gleefully breaking the most obvious rule of all, trespassing. And she didn't even knock. I considered shouting, but thought better of it. Karen thrived on confrontation, and giving her the satisfaction of yelling first was exactly what she wanted. Instead, I took a step back and activated the pool's automatic safety cover remotely. It was brand new, top-of-the-line technology, designed to close in seconds when triggered. Normally, it was meant for emergencies, but today, it would serve a very different purpose. Karen continued splashing, oblivious to the world outside her water kingdom. I could hear her cackling, completely unaware of the silent tension building. As I pressed the button, a sense of calm settled over me. She looked up, confused at first, and then panic registered as the heavy cover began gliding across the water. Within moments, it was halfway over the pool. She shrieked, flailing, trying to escape. But the cover was designed to be strong, almost impenetrable. I stepped onto the deck, keeping a safe distance, arms crossed, watching her struggle. Karen's expression shifted from shock to horror, her pride and dominance melting away as the reality sank in. She had broken into my home, and now the pool had turned into a trap. I couldn't help but feel a quiet, righteous satisfaction. By the time she managed to pull herself up onto the edge, dripping and furious, I simply said, "Next time, try asking before diving in." Her words were lost in the sputtering water, replaced by a stunned silence that said more than any argument could. The neighbors who might have seen from across the fence were in for a show, but that would come later. For now, the most important thing was clear. I had won the first round. Karen's soaked, dripping form glared at me with a fury that could melt steel. But I wasn't intimidated, not this time. Her first move was to yell across the yard, hoping to summon backup from some unsuspecting neighbor. But my property is private, and my cameras had already captured every moment. I could hear her muttering under her breath about violating HOA, authority, and legal repercussions, but the irony wasn't lost on me. She had waltzed into my sanctuary without a single warning, yet now she acted like the victim. She stomped around the pool deck like a storm cloud on legs, shaking her fists in frustration. I stayed calm, keeping my distance. Karen loved confrontation, thrived on chaos, and fed off tension. But she also underestimated consequences. Every HOA threat she had ever thrown at others backfired because nobody took her seriously. Today, that streak of overconfidence would meet the reality of technology, planning, and patience. As she paced, I noticed her eyes scanning for options. How to escape the pool cover trap. How to humiliate me publicly. How to assert some last shred of dominance. That's when I realized she hadn't just trespassed. She was trying to provoke a scene that would make me look like the bad guy. Karen always wanted attention, always wanted the spotlight. But this time, the stage was mine, and the audience, my security system, neighbors' cameras, and a very quiet, confident me was already watching. I decided to let her make the next move. Karen's ego wouldn't allow her to retreat gracefully. She had to escalate. She went over to the pool ladder and tested the automatic cover, trying to lift it manually. Of course, it didn't budge. Each tug only reinforced the fact that I had control, not her. Her face turned bright red, a mixture of exertion, embarrassment, and rage. For someone who thrived on order and power, This loss of control was torturous. Then came the shouting. Karen screamed about illegal, actions, property, rights, and unauthorized interference, her voice carrying across the backyard like a banshee warning. But it was hollow. No one could hear her, and her threats held no real weight. I stayed silent, letting her vent while I recorded the chaos in real time for my own protection. Every splash, every flailing arm, every furious glare was documented, ensuring that the next step, whatever Karen tried, would be firmly in my favor. Finally, she stopped for a moment, exhausted, breathing heavily, clearly realizing that this confrontation wasn't going according to her script. And in that brief pause, I knew Karen was about to up the ante, to try something even bolder. Just when I thought Karen had run out of steam, she paused, wiped water from her face, and a dangerous glint appeared in her eyes. This wasn't just about swimming in my pool anymore. It was personal. She had underestimated me, and Karen didn't handle humiliation well. That tiny spark of revenge in her gaze told me she was about to try something reckless. She darted to the poolside storage shed, rummaging through it like a woman possessed. I stayed back, watching carefully. She emerged with what looked like one of my pool maintenance tools, a long pole with a hook at the end. Her plan became instantly clear. She intended to lift the automatic cover manually, to assert control and prove she wasn't defeated. The audacity made my jaw tighten. This was exactly the kind of high-risk move I had anticipated. I decided to step in, not with anger, but with calm authority. "Karen," I called, my voice steady. "This is your last warning. Step back before someone gets hurt." She ignored me, gritting her teeth, and swung the pole toward the cover. But the design was clever, rigid, reinforced, impossible to budge without breaking it. The cover barely shifted, and Karen's momentum nearly sent her tumbling into the water. She screamed, flailed, and finally lost her balance. But I caught the moment on camera, documenting every chaotic second. Karen's frustration boiled over. She tried again, now more aggressively, pounding at the cover and shouting threats about lawyers, HOA rules, and the community watching. But I stayed composed, knowing she was running out of options and patience. Her desperation was making her reckless, and that was exactly the leverage I needed. I activated the pool lights remotely, illuminating her like a spotlight, turning her frantic struggle into a spectacle. I could see her realization dawning. She couldn't force the cover open. She was trapped in her own ego, and the chaos she tried to create was now entirely under my control. She had gone from invader to prisoner, all in under 5 minutes. Finally, Karen slumped against the pool edge, soaked, exhausted, and utterly defeated. Her threats had lost all power. Her intimidation tactics had failed, and her aura of authority was shattered. Every scream and scuffle had been recorded, every motion documented, and now she was faced with the undeniable proof that her arrogance had backfired spectacularly. As I stepped closer, offering her a dry towel, she glared at me like a wild animal caught in a trap. This encounter was far from over. Karen never took defeat quietly, but for the moment, I had won. And she knew it. Karen sat on the pool deck, dripping, defeated, and fuming. Her plan had collapsed, her pride shattered, and yet her stubborn ego refused to admit defeat. She muttered about legal action and retribution, but it was clear even to her that she had been outsmarted. For the first time, Karen realized that invading my backyard had not given her power. It had exposed her own vulnerability. I approached slowly, hands empty, maintaining calm authority. "Karen," I said, voice steady, "you've had your fun. Now it's time to leave." Her glare could have cut glass, but she didn't move. She was calculating, trying to figure out how to turn the situation around. But this was my turf, and my pool cover wasn't going anywhere. Every desperate maneuver she had tried had been recorded. Every threat she made documented in real time. I knew she couldn't spin this in her favor, no matter how loudly she screamed. Karen's frustration boiled over. She stomped toward me, hands waving, ready to argue, intimidate, and manipulate. I activated the automatic cover one more time, not to trap her, but to demonstrate control. The cover moved with a low hum across the pool, gleaming under the backyard lights. She flinched instinctively, remembering the earlier struggle. Her confidence wavered, replaced by the creeping realization that she had underestimated both me and my preparations. Finally, she stopped. She glared, muttered a few curses, and stormed off the deck, dripping water and dignity in equal measure. Her departure was abrupt, unceremonious, and yet poetic. She had attempted to assert dominance over me, my property, and my sanctuary. But the backyard had fought back, and Karen had lost. My security cameras had captured every moment, providing undeniable proof of her trespass, and I knew she would think twice before ever trying such a stunt again. After she left, I surveyed the pool, still glistening under the evening sky. Calm returned, the backyard once again a private sanctuary, undisturbed and secure. I activated the cover fully, ensuring everything was locked down. The sense of relief was palpable, not just because Karen was gone, but because I had defended my property without resorting to anger, escalation, or confrontation. Planning, patience, and technology had won the day. Neighbors later joked about the Karen pool incident, sharing whispers and giggles, and I couldn't help but smile. She had tried to impose her rules, her authority, and her ego onto my life. But in the end, the automatic cover had done what words could not. It had shut her down, literally. It was the perfect blend of strategy and poetic justice. The lesson was clear. Sometimes, the best way to handle an intrusive HOA Karen isn't with confrontation, but with foresight, composure, and a little clever automation. My backyard was my kingdom, and today, it had defended itself. Did you enjoy watching Karen get exactly what she deserved? Hit that like button if you loved it, subscribe for more wild HOA showdown stories, and drop a comment telling us your craziest neighbor experience. I want to hear them all.